The tension between the United States and its northern neighbor has reached a boiling point as Canada retaliates against sweeping tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, triggering economic tremors and a potential crisis for Florida's tourism industry. The roots of this clash trace back to April 2nd, a date Donald Trump once dubbed Liberation Day, when his long-threatened 25% tariffs on goods imported from Canada and Mexico were set to take effect. Originally scheduled for February 4th, the tariffs faced repeated delays as economists warned of market instability and financial panic. Each postponement came amid warnings of retaliatory measures, but instead of scrapping the plan entirely, Trump pushed the deadline to April 2nd, a move critics argue ignores the looming threat of a full-scale trade war. Canada's response has been swift and unflinching. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, whose province supplies a significant portion of energy to the U.S. power grid, stretching from the East Coast to Texas and the Gulf of Mexico, issued a stark warning. Ford vowed to cut off their energy with a smile if the U.S. proceeds with tariffs, urging other Canadian provinces to join in solidarity. Such a move could strain an already fragile U.S. energy infrastructure, risking rolling blackouts and skyrocketing costs for millions of Americans. Ford's threat underscores a broader strategy of coordinated retaliation, with provinces like Quebec and Manitoba poised to follow suit. The message is clear: Canada will not back down. Meanwhile, Florida faces an unexpected casualty of this economic standoff. Canadian tourists, known as snowbirds, have long been a cornerstone of the state's economy, flocking to cities like Miami and Fort Lauderdale to escape harsh winters. But the Miami Herald reports a sharp decline in Canadian tourism since Trump's tariffs took center stage. Airline bookings from Canadian cities to Florida have dropped by 5% overall, with specific routes plummeting even further. Flights to Miami fell 17%, while Fort Lauderdale saw a staggering 25% decrease. The ripple effect is already visible. Rental properties, restaurants, and local businesses dependent on seasonal visitors are bracing for losses. Worse, many Canadians already in Florida report boycotts by friends and family back home who refuse to spend money in the US as long as tariffs remain. Economists sound the alarm. Jim Cramer, NBC's financial analyst, highlighted the growing anxiety during a recent segment, quoting BlackRock CEO Larry Fink's dire assessment of investor sentiment. People are more anxious about the economy than any time in recent memory, Cramer emphasized, linking the unease directly to Trump's policies. While unemployment remains low and inflation declines, the administration's tariff-driven uncertainty has rattled markets, drawing comparisons to the stagflation era of Jimmy Carter. Cramer's frustration is palpable. Everything about this economy is good, except one thing. We have a president who's very angry at everyone except Vladimir Putin, he remarked, alluding to Trump's combative trade tactics. The personal stakes for Trump are mounting. Mar-a-Lago, his Florida resort and frequent gathering spot for wealthy patrons, could suffer as Canadian visitors, who account for 3 to 4 million annual tourists, opt to stay home. Travel agents warn the worst is yet to come. Many Canadians booked trips before Trump's tariffs dominated headlines, but next year's projections show a sharper decline. Somebody tell Trump he stands to be personally hurt by his own tariffs, quipped commentator David Reddish, highlighting the irony of a policy that may backfire on its architect. As tensions escalate, the question remains: will Trump reconsider his approach, or will the US and Canada descend into a mutually damaging trade war? For now, the economic fallout is already underway, with Florida's sunny shores and America's energy grid caught in the crossfire. A seismic shift in Wisconsin's political landscape has sent shockwaves through national politics, as Judge Susan Crawford's victory in the state's Supreme Court election reshapes the balance of power and delivers a stinging rebuke to the MAGA movement. The race, framed by Elon Musk as a battle for the destiny of humanity, became a proxy war between Democratic priorities and a coalition of far-right figures, oligarchs and Trump-aligned groups. Crawford's decisive win not only flips the court to a liberal majority for the first time in 15 years, but also sets the stage for landmark rulings on gerrymandering, voting rights, and election integrity in a pivotal battleground state. The campaign was among the most expensive judicial races in U.S. history, with over $53 million poured into efforts to elect Brad Schemel, the Trump-endorsed conservative candidate. Musk alone funneled millions into controversial voter registration schemes, including offering cash incentives incentives for voting, a tactic Wisconsin Democrats decried as potentially unlawful. Schimmel, a former state attorney general, leaned heavily into MAGA symbolism, dressing as Donald Trump for Halloween and declaring "Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president" at rallies. His defeat marks a collapse of Republican influence in a state Trump narrowly carried twice, signaling vulnerabilities ahead of 2024. For Democrats, the win is transformative. The court's new majority is expected to dismantle Wisconsin's heavily gerrymandered legislative maps, which have long skewed representation in favor of Republicans despite nearly even voter parity. GOP Congress members like Derek Van Orden and Brian Stile openly admitted their districts would become unwinnable under fairer maps, with Van Orden bluntly stating, "We will both lose now." The ruling could also impact pending cases related to abortion access, union rights and environmental regulations, areas where the previous conservative majority often sided with corporate and partisan interests. The fallout extends beyond policy. Trump's direct involvement, including a last-minute plea from the Oval Office urging voters to back Schimmel, underscored the race's national significance. Yet his efforts fell flat. Crawford outperformed even Vice President Kamala Harris in key counties like Dane and Milwaukee, areas critical to Democratic success. Analysts attribute her victory to a coalition of suburban moderates, young voters, and disillusioned Republicans turned off by Schimmel's overt partisanship. "This was a repudiation of extremism," said Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler, noting that Crawford's message of restoring law over politics resonated in a state weary of election conspiracy theories. Musk's role, however, has drawn scrutiny. His million-dollar checks to voters, part of a registration drive critics labeled as coercive, sparked allegations of election interference. The Associated Press highlighted legal concerns, with Wisconsin officials questioning the legality of cash-for-votes tactics. Meanwhile, Schimmel's campaign faced backlash for its ties to far-right influencers like Charlie Kirk and Scott Presler, whose "Get Out the Vote" operations in Wisconsin mirrored strategies used in other Trump-aligned campaigns. The loss has left MAGA figures grappling with their fading sway in a state once considered a conservative stronghold. As Crawford prepares to take her seat, the implications ripple outward. Legal experts predict swift action on redistricting, which could flip multiple House seats in 2024 and alter the trajectory of Congress. For Republicans, the defeat exposes a growing disconnect between their base and the broader electorate, particularly in swing states where moderate voters increasingly reject Trump-era rhetoric. Democrats, meanwhile, see a blueprint for leveraging judicial elections to counterbalance gerrymandering and voter suppression efforts nationwide. Yet the victory is not without cautionary notes. While Wisconsin Democrats celebrate, special elections in Florida, another critical battleground, revealed mixed results. In Trump-won districts, Democratic candidates narrowed GOP margins by 20 points, a notable shift but not enough to secure wins. These results hint at a polarized electorate, where enthusiasm alone may not overcome structural advantages. For now, all eyes remain on Wisconsin, where the court's new majority could redefine American democracy, one case at a time. On the global stage, world leaders are recalibrating their strategies as perceptions of American weakness under Donald Trump ripple across alliances and embolden adversaries. From Eastern Europe to the Indo-Pacific, nations once reliant on U.S. leadership now navigate a fractured geopolitical landscape, with Russia and China seizing opportunities to test boundaries long held in check by American influence. At the heart of this shift lies Trump's faltering approach to Ukraine. Despite his bold 2020 campaign promise to end the war in 24 hours, the conflict rages on, with Russian President Vladimir Putin escalating hostilities rather than retreating. Recent reports reveal Russia's largest military conscription since 2011, mobilizing 160,000 troops alongside North Korean contract soldiers, a stark signal of preparation for prolonged aggression. Meanwhile, China has intensified military drills near Taiwan, deploying aircraft carriers and warning that any move toward independence would mean war. Analysts link these provocations directly to Trump's disjointed foreign policy, which vacillates between public admiration for autocrats and erratic threats of tariffs. Weakness invites aggression, warned former U.S. Ambassador to Japan Rahm Emanuel, citing China's simultaneous naval exercises targeting Australia, Japan, and the Philippines as evidence of a broader pattern. European allies, once pillars of transatlantic unity, now operate independently. Germany has pledged an additional €3 billion in military aid to Ukraine, part of a €7 billion annual commitment, while bypassing U.S. involvement in coalition talks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's recent meeting with Germany's outgoing foreign minister underscored underscored this new reality. Ukraine is defending European security, the minister stated, framing support as an investment in continental stability rather than deference to American strategy. The message is unambiguous. With Trump's credibility in free fall, Europe is forging its own path, one that excludes US leadership. Even within Trump's inner circle, cracks are widening. Leaked communications reveal National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth conducting sensitive discussions over personal Gmail accounts, including details about drone strikes and military deployments. The lapse, deemed a severe security risk by intelligence experts, mirrors broader dysfunction. Trump's hand-picked Pentagon nominee, retired Air Force General Dan Kahn, further exposed this chaos during a Senate hearing. When pressed about Trump's fabricated story of Kahn wearing a Make America Great Again hat in Iraq, the general bluntly refuted the claim. "I've never worn political merchandise," Kahn testified, corroborated by a journalist who witnessed the 2018 visit. "Trump makes up the world as he wants it to be," the journalist added, highlighting a pattern of falsehoods eroding trust in US institutions. The consequences of this disarray are stark. US intelligence sharing with allies has dwindled, leaving gaps exploited by adversaries. In the South China Sea, Chinese warships now operate with unprecedented boldness, while Putin openly mocks Trump's failed negotiation boasts. "He thinks he can charm dictators, but they see right through him," a NATO official anonymously remarked. Domestically, Trump's focus on grievances over governance, obsessing over social media feuds while skipping intelligence briefings, has left America isolated. Even traditional partners like Canada and Australia now prioritize bilateral ties with the EU and Asian nations, sidelining Washington.